Arkansas Republican Senator Tom Cotton joining us now. Senator, thank you for joining us. We did just get the update from the White House, a photo inside the Situation Room where the White House says the president sat down with his teams to receive an update on the terrorist attack in Israel and to direct next steps. What do you want to hear from the president as he is about to speak?
Well, Sandra, what we need to hear is what the president's going to do to avenge the deaths of at least 11 Americans and an unknown number of Americans who are held hostage or at least missing, along with standing beside Israel in their response to this atrocity of unparalleled savagery. And we've seen the reports this morning of babies beheaded, women raped and mutilated, families burned alive. What Israel needs now is total freedom of action to go into Gaza and to destroy Hamas, not just as a terrorist group, but as a governing entity and a social movement. And President Biden needs to make it clear that when that happens, if in 7 or 10 or 14 days we begin to see so-called civilian casualties because Hamas is using civilians as human shields, that he's not going to listen to the calls for the left to demand restraint or proportionality or a ceasefire. Second, we need to hear President Biden express his regret for his Iran policy, which has helped lead us to this point. Iran is the world's worst state sponsor of terrorism. Hamas could not exist on the scale and the brutality it does without the support for Iran. So the president needs to announce that he'll immediately halt the $6 billion transfer to Iran, that he'll immediately begin to enforce sanctions against Iranian oil shipping, which has enriched them to the tune of tens of billions of dollars, and warn Iran directly in no uncertain terms that if they attempt to take advantage of this situation, if they unleash their other proxy, Hezbollah, on Israel, that they will be met with a ferocious American response as well. So the president needs to make it clear what he's going to do to protect Americans, to stand beside Israel for as long as it takes, and to change course on his disastrous Iran policy.
Senator, I wanted to ask you about this. There are reports in Semaphore and Tablet that a high-level Iranian spy ring has been uncovered in Washington, D.C. At the same time, the administration's Iran envoy and the chief negotiator of the JCPOA, Rob Malley, has had his security clearance revoked, or suspended at the very least, as the FBI investigates possible mishandling of classified evidence. Now, at the moment, there is no evidence of any wrongdoing by Malley, but I know that Republicans in Congress, and I would count you among them, are very frustrated about the lack of transparency regarding this issue by the State Department. What can you tell us?
Well, Rob Malley is a notoriously pro-Iran ideologue. In fact, he was kicked off Barack Obama's campaign in 2008 for the contacts he had with Hamas. And Rob Malley is responsible for bringing in this Iranian influence circle to the Biden administration, one of whom, to my knowledge, still sits in the Pentagon as the chief of staff for the Assistant Secretary of Defense for Special Operations. Every one of these people should have their security clearance revoked and be removed from any position of power or influence until these allegations can be thoroughly investigated. We cannot risk having Iranian influence operations being conducted inside the United States government at a time that Israel is about to launch a major war against one of Iran's worst proxies in the Middle East. These people should have never been in our government. They certainly shouldn't be in positions of power now.
All right, we're told we've got the shot up now of the White House, the podium where the president is about to address the nation, address the world on next steps and how we are going to prepare to go forward at Israel's side here. Senator, as far as priorities are concerned, will the White House get this right on how we act next?
I don't know, Sandra. There's a tradition going back many years of Democratic presidents demanding restraint and proportionality and ceasefires from Israel when Israel is simply protecting its own people or retaliating for the kind of brutal savagery we've seen. President Biden has to resist that. He has to give Israel the time and the freedom of action it needs. He also has to reverse his disastrous Iran policy. Look, even Jimmy Carter in late 1979, after the Ayatollahs overthrew the Shah in Iran and Russia invaded Afghanistan, changed course. President Biden has to change course after 11 disastrous years of Obama-Biden appeasement and weakness and concessions to the world's worst state sponsor of terrorism, Iran, which is responsible for creating Hamas at the scale and the brutality at which it exists today.
Senator, you spent time in the U.S. military. You know the value of intelligence. People have been talking about the massive intelligence failure that happened here that allowed Hamas terrorists to infiltrate and kill so many people. That intelligence failure extends all the way to this administration, because take a listen to what Jake Sullivan, the National Security Advisor, said about the Middle East just 12 days ago.
We want to depressurize, de-escalate, and ultimately integrate the Middle East region. The war in Yemen is in its 19th month of truce. For now, the Iranian attacks against U.S. forces have stopped. Our presence in Iraq is stable. I emphasize for now because all of that can change. And the Middle East region is quieter today than it has been in 2 decades.
The Middle East is quieter today than it has been in 2 decades. I mean, they were caught so flat-footed, it's stunning.
Yeah, John, and it hasn't been quiet even up to Saturday. I mean, we've had more than 80 attacks on American forces in the Middle East by Iran or its proxies, almost none of which have been answered. There's a reason why Iran thought they could get away with supporting Hamas and Hezbollah as they have. Iran has been killing Ukrainians by providing drones and other weapons to Russia. There's been no consequences. In fact, this administration has consistently looked the other way and refused to enforce sanctions against Iranian oil shipments, enriching the Iranian regime to the tune of tens of billions of dollars, putting aside the $6 billion they paid as ransom for American hostages. So for 3 years, really for 11 years, under both Barack Obama and Joe Biden, Iran has been emboldened to believe that the United States will not stand up for itself or for our allies in the region. It is absolutely essential that we reverse President Biden's Iran policy and that we take a stand against Iran and all of its proxies everywhere in the firmest possible terms.
Senator, I ask you about priorities because we're left wondering what exactly we are about to hear from this administration, from the president himself. This after White House spokesperson John Kirby came on this network yesterday afternoon with Martha and was asked about the president prioritizing climate change as an existential threat, more so than nuclear war. Listen to this.
Given all the nuclear players in these 2 areas where we are now engaged, John, does the president stand by that comment?
Absolutely, he does. Climate change is an existential threat. It could, it actually threatens and is capable of wiping out all human life on Earth over time. I mean, I don't know how more existential you can get.
Certainly an interesting moment right in the middle of all of this, Senator.
Look, these are not serious people. John Kirby is talking about climate change at a time when Hamas has cut off the heads of babies in Israel. Jake Sullivan, the National Security Advisor, has said just a couple weeks ago that the Middle East is as quiet as it has been in 20 years. We had 11 Americans killed, even more potentially taken hostage or missing, and we haven't heard publicly from the president in 2 days. This administration is overmatched by events and paralyzed in a crisis. It's why it's so important that President Biden, in these remarks coming up, make it clear that he is going to reverse course. He's going to confront Iran. He's going to take actions like halting the $6 billion payment for American hostages. He's going to enforce sanctions against Iranian oil shipping. He's going to end all financial aid payments towards the Palestinians. And he is going to give Israel a free hand to utterly destroy Hamas inside of Gaza. Anything less will simply embolden Iran and its proxies like Hamas and Hezbollah to the north of Israel.
Senator Tom Cotton of the great state of Arkansas, good to get your thoughts on all of this. We appreciate it as we await the president. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.